Hey everyone, Jason here, digital marketing consultant and fellow entrepreneur, and goals are a great way to make sure we bring our life and business vision into reality, but when done incorrectly, they can actually wind up hurting more than they help our business growth and of course life vision. So these are going to be the top 5 mistakes most entrepreneurs make when it comes to goal setting based on my own experience and working with fellow entrepreneurs and clients. So timestamps below along with some other helpful videos to helping you stay productive and of course focused as you build your own business. Now to keep things simple, all we're going to define a goal here for our purposes is clearly completing an action by a specific date. So your goal is I'm going to complete X by Y date. And that's as complex as we're going to have our goals here. No SMART goals or any other types of goals. I'll leave that up to you. So the very first mistake number 1, is setting goals in terms of years instead of months or if not quarters. And when you're just getting started, you're in side hustle mode, right? You're trying to work on whatever your vision is and make it full-time, or maybe you're just starting full-time and you really want to scale it. Well, the reality is we're brand new at this, right? We haven't built a business before. And so when you start making year goals, multi-year goals, your goals start to become way too big and way too far off. And the further off a goal is, the harder it is to actually achieve. Whereas if you set monthly or quarterly goals, you're going to be a lot more motivated and it's going to be rooted in things that you actually understand. After all, if you set a big goal for a year that you've never achieved before, chances are you probably don't have a concrete project plan to achieve that goal. Whereas if you create a monthly goal or a quarterly goal, you're much more likely to achieve them and you're much more likely to set realistic goals based upon your experiences and expectations. And after all, when we're trying to set those big goals, we're probably basing it off some experience we've seen from someone else. And we've all seen the motivational Instagram post where we see the tiny iceberg at the top, results of other people, and then the giant rest of the iceberg underneath. So when you're trying to set annual goals based on what other people have achieved, just remember that you're making those goals assuming that you somehow know everything that went into the giant iceberg under the water that you actually can't see. Now, the second mistake when it comes to creating goals, let's say you're no longer doing 3 or 5 year goals, you're down to 1 year or less, which is a great place to start, is making sure that you have goals that are based on actions, not results. And this is a huge mistake to do at the beginning because you can get completely depleted. You'll be depleted of energy, but then you'll also be completely demoralized when halfway through the month or the year you realize there's no physical way to hit the goal that you set for yourself. So when I say results goal, I mean certain number of sales, maybe it's a certain number of subscribers or certain number of sales calls, whatever it might be in terms of results that you can't actually directly control. I know when I first started this channel, I started setting goals in terms of views and subscribers, and it didn't seem to matter how many videos I created or how many comments I replied to, how much research I did, how many different topics I came up with. I just couldn't seem to hit that subscriber result. And so one of the things that I've learned along the way is actually shifting your focus to creating goals based upon actions that you take. So instead of having a certain number of sales, make the goal to book a certain number of sales calls or reach out to a certain number of potential customers. You're trying to grow your audience someplace. Set your goal for sending a certain number of emails, running a certain amount of ads, or posting a certain amount of videos or blog posts, because those are actions that you control. And when you create goals that are based on actions that you control, well, at the end of the day, there's no external things that you can point to make an excuse. And you can take full responsibility for your success. And more importantly, you can take full responsibility for your failure. After all, when you set result-oriented goals, it's okay to set those on an annual basis. But after that, they need to be based on actions because it's way too easy to shift responsibility of not necessarily reaching a goal onto something external when it is based on results as opposed to actions. Now, mistake number 3 is going to be breadth versus depth, and that is having way too many goals and not going deep enough on the ones that you have. Look, we all have the same 16-hour days. Hopefully you're actually getting enough sleep, and there is a limit to how much we can get done in those 16 hours. It's very easy to look at more successful people in our niche industry and see them doing 10, if not 20 times more things than we can physically do right now, and that's the reality. That's okay. That's where everyone starts. So instead of trying to have 20 or 30 different goals for your year or your month, focus on 3 to 5 that are the most important. And so you focus on what's the actual priority, and then that way you make sure that you get the depth that's needed in order to actually achieve those goals, as opposed to setting 20 goals that aren't really all that important, but you just kind of get to feel good and get that little dopamine drip every time you get to check one off, as opposed to looking at everything that you could be doing and saying, okay, what's the one, if not 2 or 3 things that I need to get done this month, this quarter, or this year at the max, in order to move my business forward, to achieve the results that I ultimately want. Now, I highly recommend a book called The One Thing by Gary Keller. This was a monumental game changer for me in terms of goal setting and how I plan my day. He goes really extreme. He goes, you should focus on one thing and one thing only until that thing is complete. I'm going to be a little more liberal here and just say 2 to 3, and absolutely no more than that for whatever your goal setting period. So you make sure that you don't keep jumping around. You focus on what's actually the most important and stop comparing yourself to everything else someone else might be doing. Now, speaking of comparing yourself, you need to strike a balance between staying focused on your goal, putting blinders on, but then also coming up for air every once in a while to look around and see, okay, what's going on in my niche or industry? Now, the balance that I think we've found that seems pretty good is every 3 months. And so what we'll do is we'll set an annual goal, and then we'll set quarterly goals, and then once a quarter, we'll review our goals and make sure that our annual goals and the future quarterly goals still make sense in the context of everything in the marketplace that's changed around us. Because after all, the world is a fast-changing pace. It moves, it changes at a fast pace. It's a fast-changing place. Oh my gosh. Okay, but the point here is you don't want to be changing your goals every other week, right? I think we could all agree that if you looked at your goals and you were changing them every week, that would be ridiculous, because then you'd just be following opportunity. That would be shiny object syndrome. But at the same time, you don't want to go an entire year and never take a breath of fresh air and look up and say, hey, maybe I shouldn't be plowing in this direction. I need to actually pivot and go a different way. So that's going to be mistake number 4, is either shift not being fluid enough with your goals or being too static. So a good balance, I think every 3 months, you take a step back and you make sure that your goals are still in line with the vision that you want for your life, and they're still realistic based on the experience of the past quarter. Now, number 5 is going to be a little counterintuitive here, but that is dreams versus reality. And at the end of the day, your goals, if you want to be successful in business, have to be based in reality. So if we're looking at a glass half full, half empty, when you're making your goals, it needs to be half empty, actually. And the reason for that is because when you create goals that are so big, so monumentous, they're just going to weigh you down. Just like we talked about in the first mistake, setting 3 and 5 year goals that are way too big and just outside the realm of your experience. Those big goals, even if you scale it back and you say, I'm gonna make, X amount by the end of the month, and it's a 500% increase over what you've done previous months, then you're just setting yourself up for failure. This is not a place where you're gonna set some lofty goal and then, okay, well, maybe if I only make it halfway, then that'll be okay. I'll make it further than if I had, brought it back down. And that's not really the way to set business goals. Sure, when you're trying to motivate yourself, that's great. But for actually growing a practical business, when you're looking at cash flows and balance sheets, you want to be hiring and firing people, that makes absolutely no sense. It's ludicrous. You need to be realistic with your business. Even if it's just you need to set the habit of having goals that are realistic and reasonable so you can actually create a real project plan. When you set lofty goals like I'm going to 500% increase my sales, you might be able to do 250%. But you know what? You're going to be burned the heck out at the end of the month. And then you know what's going to happen? Your productivity is going to do this the rest of the year because you tried to hit this ridiculous goal 1 month and didn't really think about how that was going to affect everything else. So you just have to be practical. Now, am I saying never dream big? Of course not. Your vision board is a great place for all of those big, grandiose goals, grandiose visions. I'll link up in the cards and the description to a video that walks through a practical way to create a vision board, and that's where all of those big dreams and lifestyle things should go. But when it comes to your business, you need to be practical and you need to be project management focused, not pie in the sky. So I hope those 5 were helpful and you have an idea of how you could be more successful with your goal setting. Go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe for more productivity videos just like this one, and until the next, keep building the business you love.